Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's presentation. My name is Sarah Eichberger, and I'm happy to be presenting this topic for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Community of Practice. This webinar will focus on the results of a study that investigated the challenges of the engagement process associated with volunteering in low-income urban communities of color as perceived by Master Gardeners. I wanted to take just a brief moment here to introduce myself. However, I wanted to make sure that no one else is experiencing an echo. Is everyone else hearing an echo? Looks like I only have one other person. Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and proceed. I was asked to just offer a brief introduction to myself and when this specific research took place. Great, thanks everyone for your feedback here. As a registered dietitian, I've been working in urban community settings with diverse populations since 2003, and my perspective on health is strongly rooted in a public health approach and from a food systems perspective. Through my early work experiences in community health centers and refugee resettlement, I became increasingly interested in underlying causes of food access and health disparities. The picture here was taken in a community garden in Chicago's North Side. In this particular garden, the Ruby Garden, served as a site that participants at a former job I had were encouraged to build and develop as a way to encourage healthy food access, healing, and relationship building within the community. After these work experiences, I had the privilege of studying public health nutrition with a concentration in health disparities at the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. And since May of last year, I've been working as an extension educator or agent for Michigan State University, focusing on chronic disease prevention and management programming in northern Michigan. This qualitative research presented today was completed between 2011 and 2012 as a graduate student. At the time, I was also serving as a University of Minnesota Master Gardener intern, which is a title given once granted admission to the program in the period in which educational coursework volunteer hours are completed. I also wanted to take this time to acknowledge my former professors, Carolyn Garcia and Jamie Stang, for their contributions to this work. So the purpose of the study was focused on the question, what challenges or barriers exist within the Master Gardener program in reaching and volunteering in low-income urban communities of color as perceived by Master Gardeners. This study took place in the Twin Cities, or Minneapolis-St. Paul, Minnesota metro area. And the learning objectives are to identify challenges of the engagement process as perceived by Master Gardeners and also identify recommendations to reduce these challenges. In addition to the objectives specific to the study and noted here on the slides, another objective would be to possibly seek out your local Master Gardener program and identify areas for partnership and to inquire about strategies they use to support diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout the county or state program. In the next several slides, I'll be discussing background research or the rationale, methods used, findings, conclusions, and implications for practice and research. So there's a growing body of research has studied inequities in healthy food access and the influence that these have on differences on health. Evidence supports the claim that urban, low-income communities of color are affected by these differences in access and may exacerbate disparities in diet-related chronic disease and obesity rates. Disparities in obesity and chronic disease across racial, ethnic, and income groups have led researchers to focus on the social and environmental factors that influence dietary intake. The lack of access to affordable, nutritious food makes it a challenge for many Americans to consume a diet consistent with the dietary guidelines. This access may be related to overall disparities in health. A modest yet growing body of literature has demonstrated that gardens encourage and promote the health of the individual and the greater community. Research has demonstrated how gardens positively impact fruit and vegetable intake, access, various barriers of consumption, and also work to build a greater sense of community. Researchers have noted that access to a shared resource, such as a garden, can improve social networks and enhance social capital or relationships among community members. So what is the role of the Master Gardener given this background and evidence? By working in edible gardens in diverse settings, Master Gardeners have the potential to participate in national public health efforts to improve the food environment, prevent obesity, chronic disease, and promote healthy food access. This network of volunteers includes over 94,000 members nationwide and has performed over 5 million hours of volunteer service. 80% of them are in metropolitan areas. Our current Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, has referred to Master Gardeners as, quote, the real experts in the garden, and actively promotes the program as a resource for people who want to grow their own food. Nationally, however, racial and ethnic populations are underrepresented among Master Gardeners. This demographic trend is consistent with volunteering in general, that white, college-educated women represent the largest volunteer demographic nationwide, and the barriers to volunteering, such as adequate transportation, money, and time, are well documented for low-income communities. These barriers can influence the demographic makeup of Master Gardeners as a group and lead to a gap in understanding between Master Gardeners and the communities who may most need their expertise. If you're interested in learning more about the process one goes through to become a Master Gardener, I'd encourage you to visit the e-Extension Master Gardener homepage. So, methods. A qualitative design was chosen for the study to explore perspectives of experienced Master Gardeners who volunteer their time in predominantly edible gardens in under-resourced communities in the Twin Cities metro area. A purpose of sampling technique was used to gather participants based on their experience to the issue under investigation. The aim was to gather information-rich data from a sample chosen for its ability to speak to the research question. The inclusion criteria to participate is listed here. As you can see, they've had to have been an active Master Gardener for at least 3 years, and again, predominantly volunteer in under-resourced communities within edible gardens. An inductive approach was used to systematically condense data and establish linkages between the data and the research objectives. So a total of 18 Master Gardeners participated in one-on-one face-to-face interviews that lasted between 45 to 60 minutes. The personal demographics of the participants are shown here, which are also very similar to the Master Gardener demographic trends nationwide. As you can see, they're mostly between, the ones participating in the study were over 50, mostly women, white women, and mostly college educated. So results of the data analysis identified 3 main themes and various sub-themes, which are presented in this slide in their entirety. The themes identified areas in which Master Gardeners perceived as challenges and are specific to the process in which they and their colleagues engage with low-income communities of color and urban gardens. I'm going to now discuss each theme a bit more individually. So the first theme, entitled Branching Out, with sub-themes and quotes to help illustrate each of these sub-themes. And I won't read each quote verbatim, but please feel free to do so on your own. It's a pretty white group. Overwhelmingly, participants identified the homogeneity of their cohort as a barrier in reaching more diverse communities. Participants commented on slight improvements in diversifying membership, but overall, the lack of diversity in ethnicity, race, age, and gender was observed as a negative feature. Informants expressed the idea that lack of diversity could be a barrier to engaging and recruiting more diverse volunteer base or future Master Gardeners to enroll in the program. We don't grow kale, for God's sakes. Informants shared that having limited numbers of Master Gardeners who are excited and knowledgeable about vegetable gardening might contribute to perceptions by the general public that they are not equipped to offer expertise in this area. Informants commented on how they felt the program focuses more efforts on growing flowers than food, which reinforces perceptions that the program and its members represent and cater to affluent demographics. Getting out of our comfort zone. One of the points made by multiple informants was that areas of the city in which they personally chose to spend volunteer time might not be as appealing to their Master Gardener colleagues. The use of the words afraid, fear, and uncomfortable were used to describe colleagues who did not sign up for volunteer or educational opportunities in more racially diverse, lower-income areas of the city. This is the second theme. Many informants described a challenge related to the associations made with the word master, which in this case is a word used to reflect an expert gardener. All master gardeners receive and are encouraged to wear name tags in the community to identify themselves. And some admitted they purposefully avoid wearing them because they do not want to be perceived as a, quote, expert by community members, as they think this results in them becoming unapproachable. And just an example of what that name tag commonly looks like among Extension Master Gardeners. This is an example of mine, and this closely resembles the name tag in which the particular program participants of these Master Gardeners program wear. The third and final theme of communication with the three sub-themes listed here. Is there an interpreter? Having the skills and resources to effectively communicate with diverse communities was a challenge expressed by the majority of participants interviewed. Participants commented on a language as a barrier, as well as the method in which Master Gardeners typically provide information to be a barrier, not a facilitator, to reaching non-English speaking communities. Does this really count for hours? Participants identified a cultural difference in expectations, that there was a need for the Master Gardener simply to be present in the community to strengthen relationships and foster trust. However, participants of the program interviewed noted that this specific program does not register or count that time toward their required volunteer hours because educational activities did not necessarily take place. Other participants shared the same concern and recommended that the Master Gardener program reevaluate significance of such tasks or significance of tasks such as weeding. We're seen as an institution. The affiliation Master Gardener programs have with large universities was identified as another key barrier that could prevent effective relationship building and communication. A participant described how other cultural groups might perceive this Western construction of knowledge about gardening as restrictive or not inclusive to diverse beliefs and perspectives. This perception could contribute to various cultural groups not accepting or finding the information provided by Master Gardeners as all that useful. In contrast, some participants identified positive aspects of their university affiliation, citing the fact that information provided is research-based. So how could the Master Garden program help reduce the perceived barriers identified, or what were the recommendations made? So the first was to enhance training and capacity of membership to include cultural competency, utilize the strengths and expertise of current members to provide guidance on best practices and community engagement, review and modify existing educational materials for literacy level, language, and culture. Through the process of conducting interviews for the study, it became clear that many of the participants possess skills and knowledge in community engagement, and these Master Gardeners could offer a unique perspective in training their colleagues in how to recognize cultural differences and how to adapt appropriately. Examine barriers for participation, such as the application process. Consider providing scholarships for those unable to pay for the core course training fee, which in this particular case was over $250, and further examine ways to reduce resources such as a car and computer needed for in-person course participation. Lastly, establish partners with community members or organizations to gather insight for greater program outreach and marketing, and consider a system that allows input from community members to measure the effectiveness of program goals. So results indicate that current training and recruitment process for Master Gardeners may be inadequate for addressing fresh fruit and vegetable access issues in low-income urban communities. Negative perceptions, lack of training and cultural competency, and community engagement may serve as barriers to reaching broader audiences, therefore reducing effectiveness in meeting program goals of diversity and inclusion and in serving as a resource and community ally or partner in supporting healthy food access. So this research serves as a basis for the participating county programs to help gauge effectiveness in meeting program goals specific to diversity and inclusion. Findings offered insight into current and future strategic planning efforts for the participating programs in this study. Shortly after this project was completed, I shared findings with the state director at the time and the program coordinators from both counties involved, as well as their members. I was also asked to present the findings to the Minnesota State Program Advisory Board. Also, since this was completed, I learned that an extension specialist was asked to present on the topic of cultural competency during Master Gardener new member orientation. I am, however, unaware if this is still taking place. Also worth mentioning here is that one of my former professors and advisors on this project is currently completing her Master Gardener intern year with one of the county programs involved in the study. She recently informed me that she is working to follow up on barriers to participation in the program by non-majority individuals and working with others to plan a diversity assessment for county members to complete. In addition, she's hoping to work with a graduate student to do interviews with Latino families around facilitators and barriers to gardening and how, if at all, they think gardening impacts their diet quality and food security. Additional research could examine how urban low-income communities of color perceive the work of Master Gardeners. This could yield insights into how the program can be marketed and tailored to meeting community-specific needs and interests. In addition, while the study was solely conducted within an urban setting, future work could examine the Master Gardener program and outreach efforts in serving rural communities. The future holds tremendous potential for community gardening and Extension's involvement. This was a concluding statement in an article published in the Journal of Extension over 20 years ago, describing Extension's role in improving quality and socioeconomic well-being of individuals, families, and neighborhoods through community gardening in an urban environment. The Master Gardener program has responded to America's renewed interests in planting vegetable gardens and is recognized by the Secretary of Agriculture as the go-to experts in growing food. However, there is room for programs to take active steps to reduce negative perceptions and programmatic barriers to ensure broader participation and meaningful engagement. With additional learning and training, Master Gardeners have the potential to help support broad public health initiatives to support healthy food access and reduce health disparities. So with that, I know this is a brief presentation. I wanted to go ahead, if there's any questions specifically, I could answer them now. If you have questions, you can enter them in the chat box. I should also mention that this particular research project was published in the American Community Garden Association publication called the Community Greening Review. It's published in their 19th volume, which came out late in 2014, but it's dedicated to the topics of food justice. Looks like... Will the presentation be posted somewhere? Yes, so from what I understand, the presentation is currently being recorded and will be archived on the E-Extension's Community of Practice for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Any other questions? Looks like Robert is typing. Okay. Correct, Lisa. That is the link to the document or to the publication that I cited. Let's see. A few questions. I'll just start with the Chelsea's first. What types of gardens were these Master Gardeners participating in? So part of the inclusion criteria was that the Master Gardeners interviewed had to be participating in edible gardens or gardens that predominantly grew vegetables in the city. However, Master Gardeners aren't, they don't necessarily all have to participate in gardens that are growing vegetables. They can participate in other ways as volunteers. Let's see. Up here is, Robert, can you advise on parameters in selecting interpreters, age, cultural, etc., besides just language? I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. Selecting interpreters. So just based on how I understand your question, in this particular case, Twin Cities, as some of you may know, is a home to many Hmong refugees as well as Burmese, and they speak Burmese or Karen. There's also a lot of Spanish-speaking communities. So it would just be a matter of understanding which communities and which languages are used predominantly in areas in which your local programming may be happening within the Master Gardener program. Barbara, how do you get past the fear of going into the neighborhoods? Yeah, well, that's a good question. And I think that a lot of this has to do with, you know, individual fears and negative perceptions around communities that they may not be very familiar with or have stereotypes of themselves. And so that sort of, you know, training and education could be really helpful in some of these cases where individuals may be simply just afraid to go because the community may not look like the neighborhoods in which they live or commonly visit. Lupe, how would I find out more about the cultural competency training presented during Master Gardener orientation? So the current state director of the Minnesota program, there was a new staff person hired shortly after I left the University of Minnesota Extension. His name is Tim Kenny. And when you visit the Minnesota Master Gardener program website, you can find his contact information and then inquire about the cultural competency training that I mentioned briefly in this slide. And again, I'm not sure if that's currently taking place. I heard 2 years ago that the Extension faculty member was invited to present on cultural competency in a one-session course during training for interns. Sarah. Oh, she's responding. Okay. Robert, many Hmong communities in your area. Based on my work with refugee resettlement, I would look there in your community. Is there a refugee resettlement service organization that you could partner with and/or you could learn from? In particular, in one of my previous jobs, I worked with refugee health promoters who also served as my interpreters, and often, in some cases, translators as well, when I interacted with participants of that community. Lillian, have you done any Master Gardener, have you done any studies incorporating the Junior Master Gardener program? No, I haven't. That would be potentially a great area to develop or to pursue. Shelley, what are your thoughts on how community partners or community guides are used to have, or used or have been used to create and establish better relationships with the community? Well, I think, having gone through the Master Gardener program training course myself, and I know the county, this program varies depending on what state you're in, but I think it could be a good idea for during the orientation process or during regular Master Gardener member meetings, which typically occur on a regular basis throughout the year. There could be, you know, a community partner invited to share information about members that they work with and how the Master Gardener program may be of support to them, and potentially offer some insight into, you know, best ways of working with that specific community and what the strengths and needs might be. Julia, how do you motivate Master Gardener volunteers to stay engaged? In one area, folks planted a garden alongside a neighborhood residence. People showed up originally, then just a few came to help. The night before the, quote, harvest event, the entire crop was taken from the garden, and the workers did not get any produce. This happened several years, so the Master Gardeners just gave up. Well, I think that can be commonly an issue in community gardens, is that sometimes by the nature of the garden itself, it's accessible to others in the community, and it can be frustrating when you come back weeks later. Either in some cases the garden could be vandalized, or produce could be taken. I think it just requires you know, partnering with the community surrounding that garden, and maybe offering for example, in one of the gardens I worked with, we had a plot in which individuals, aside from the gardeners who were tending to the plots, could help themselves to some of the food that was being grown. And so they didn't, and that sort of supported and prevented theft or potentially vandalism from taking place. So if there was a plot noted for community members to participate or take from and eat from, that might help alleviate or reduce some of the instances in which there could be theft or you know, negative situations that you described. And Lupe, are you aware of the Master Gardener programs who have increased the involvement of Latino Master Gardeners? I have not. I don't know of any specifically. I would, yeah, I'm sorry, I am unaware. That might be, that could be a question posed to members of the Master Gardener E-Extension community of practice in terms of identifying programs that have worked more with Latino populations, or getting more Latinos involved in the program. Sure. Well, I don't think there's any other questions. Oh, Lillian. Yeah, Lillian, I do know you. Engaged from a local high school. Correct. Yeah, it always helps to get youth involved in master gardening, and we know from the growing body of research that's out there, youth and children who are involved in gardening tend to be more interested in eating vegetables and fruit, and also have greater knowledge and education around food systems, and that's a great idea. Greenagers, yes, that's a fun term. Well, if there's no other questions, I appreciate all the questions that were submitted. Feel free to send the link to this program out to representatives within your county or state if you think they might be able to benefit or be interested, and also or also the link to the publication from the American Community Garden Association. Sure, thank you all.